Howdy ho, Maplers, and welcome to Kinesis, the friend story class. And to put it blunt, the Windows Vista of KMS classes. I'm kind of not gonna pull any punches on this one. This class is kind of embarrassing that it's an official KMS release class, because this class has a lot of problems. It's almost on par with some of the non-KMS classes. Like, Jet is a more functioning class than this. This thing has as many problems as Beast Tamer. It's not the worst class, but it's just the standards of modern classes are just so far beyond what Kinesis is. I'm surprised it hasn't seen a lot more changes, and it's only getting minor changes from now until the end of Ignition as well. It's pretty bad. For the gear set, as always, I use my Mesa accessories for my rings and earrings and my pendants because I'm gonna be killing a bunch of monsters anyways. Might as well make some Mesa while doing it. Nothing too crazy for Kinesis. One thing this class does have going in its favor is its base damages are really high. Shockwave being your main mobbing skill and also a 5th job skill pretty much means Kinesis is going to have almost no issues when it comes to killing monsters at low funding. That's the plus. The mobbing really isn't the problem side of Kinesis, it's all of the moving parts just jamming up when you're trying to do anything besides mob. For the inner ability, ideally you want +1 attack speed, but since there's a 50% off honor event coming next Sunday, I'm just going to hold on to 19 Mesa since this is pretty much best in slot for training because more money, yay! But yeah, you ideally want to have that +1 attack speed in there. For the V Matrix, Kinesis is a pretty painful one. It's a class that has a lot of skills, so you're gonna eat up a lot of nodes. But the most important node, forever and always, Decent Holy Symbol. First spot, it's literally the best thing you can put on your V Matrix for 99% of classes as soon as you hit 250. Level 1, level 25, level 30, doesn't matter, it's worth the spot. EXP, drop rate, is the best skill in the gosh darn game. And then the boost nodes. If you're lucky, like I was, and get your perfect trios, you realistically only need 2. The third trio is very situational, and it's going to be made even more situational in the future once they get some skill changes, but your most important skills are Psychic Grab, Kinetic Combo, Psychic Drain, Ultimate BPM, Ultimate Metal Press, and Ultimate Trainwreck. These are your bread and butter. You're using all of these constantly for bossing, for mobbing, everything. You need them. Absolutely need them. Your third trio, Psychic Force, Mind Break, and Mental Tempest. Psychic Force is a good, but not great, damage over time ability. It's also how you reposition your icosahedron 5th job skill without recasting the skill to pull it to you. But it's not insane. Mind Break is a skill that's going to be changed into a passive at the end of Ignition. So instead of Mind Break, it is going to change into Mind Quake, which is a debuff skill that does 1 line of damage. At all. Like, literally, the entire duration of the stupid summon is 1 line of damage when you place it. Not something you really need to boost. And then the third skill is Mental Tempest. Not insane for your damage, but you're going to be using it a lot. Both for its iframe, its psychic point generation, and just for extra damage. You might as well have it boosted, because it's more damage while you're bossing, it's helpful while you're mobbing, because it's not the strongest thing in the universe, it's just 1 line of damage a bunch of times. But this is the third trio. It is like the lowest of low priorities. The 2 trios up top, those are your breadwinners, those are the ones you want to get. This is the one you accidentally get and you keep, because hey, all 3 are useful, and you'll eventually have enough V-Matrix spaces for them. Oh boy, sure. We're gonna start with the complaining. The Psychic Grab! This skill is so fucking shit, dude. Alright, I understand the aesthetic design choice behind Clutch, where you pick up monsters and use them to bash against other monsters. Hey, that's cool! Beating a dude with another dude. What's cooler than that? But the actual gameplay problems that arise because of this are so fucking detrimental. If you have bad ping, or if you hit a nasty leg spike, you literally cannot attack! Because the game isn't sending packets back to you to make sure if you're grabbing a fucking monster or not. It's so stupid! Ugh, I hate it. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I don't know how this has lasted so long without being changed as well. This was released around the release of Reboot, so this class is fairly old now. This problem has been known for a long time, and there's still not even at least a toggle to turn off picking up mobs. Not to mention, picking up mobs isn't even beneficial. If you pick up mobs, depending on how many you pick up, they will deduct their mob amount from the next mobbing skill you use. So, you're never actually gaining any benefit from it. There's a long wind up for the start of the skill where you pick up mobs or you pick up random bullshit, what have you, and you get absolutely nothing for it. Literally nothing. You just have a delayed main mobbing skill, a main attacking skill for both bossing and mobbing with no added benefit. I don't understand. I don't understand. I haven't been this perplexed by like a class's design since Demon Avenger pre-4th V. The Psychic Drain. I like this skill. It's a necessary skill for the class, but I hate it as well. Why is it only a 30-second cooldown? Why is its hitbox not in line with the animation? Why can't you just have this be a skill that surrounds the character in like a secondary mobbing portion or a mobbing skill? Like, do what you've done with a bunch of other classes, hold the down arrow key and use Psychic Drain, and instead of placing a field down as a summon for like mobbing and whatnot, why not have the field just surround Kinesis? This skill is absolutely vital for you. This is your only reliable psychic point generator that's up 100% of the time, and it's fucking useless in any instance where a boss can move more than 5 pixels, because you just have to constantly you just have to constantly reposition this thing to be able to use your skills. This isn't the key problem here. This is just an exasperated problem because the skills on Kinesis have way too high of a psychic point cost. But when this is your only reliable way to generate psychic points without a long cooldown attached to it from your hypers, it's pretty important that this skill feel good to use. But it doesn't. It has a long cast animation. It's clunky as fuck. It doesn't have a hitbox that lines up with its animation. The damage isn't even that good. But it's still so vitally necessary. The second skill. Oh, BPM, BPM, BPM. I'll caveat this by saying BPM will get better. At the end of Ignition, they're changing BPM again for the second time. They're changing it so BPM will never toggle off under any circumstance other than you pressing the key to turn it off. Thank Christ. That was my biggest problem. You probably saw the 2 ranting videos about Kinesis. That was a big problem. They're changing it so it'll only attack when you have over 3 psychic points. Fantastic change. BPM as it exists right now might be my most hated skill in the game. It will just turn off for random benign bullshit. You lag wrong, you go through a Dream Depender portal wrong, you hold on to a rope for a fraction of a second to jump off, you never know if it's going to turn off or stay on, so you always have to be watching this little dinky animation that you can't normally see through all of your other giant animations, and you just have to, like, pray it doesn't turn off. Oh, and then Metal Press and Trainwreck. These skills just have too high of a psychic point cost. These are like my smallest problems with the classes. This can be solved by like adding another psychic point generator as their 5th V or something, but as they exist currently, they just cost way too many psychic points to be useful in 90% of situations besides just dealing raw damage. Because Kinesis does have damage. It does, when you're allowed to actually use your kit when the boss stands still and says, "Alright, Kinesis, you can be a class." it does good damage. But when bosses don't stand still, you don't have the psychic point generation, you can't be using train constantly, you can't be spamming metal press. If your hyper's not up to cut their costs in half, these skills feel like absolute ass to use. I don't know, dude. This class definitely ain't for me. Okay, ranting about the the boost nodes aside. V-skills! Woo! Ultimate Psychic Shockwave. This is your main mobbing skill. For all intents and purposes, forget Clutch exists because it's a steaming pile of shit. Psychic Shockwave, on the other hand, pretty poggers. Only downside, it has a max of 8 enemies hit. It does have a small caveat that it also leaves behind a little black hole that can also mob, and it charges psychic points, which is cool. But it's really not that useful. The skill throws so far away, in most maps, you're either going to throw the black hole beyond the point where mobs spawn, or the shockwave itself is going to be enough to kill all the mobs, and the black hole doesn't have any staying power at all, so you're not going to get any mobbing benefit from it. So realistically, in most situations, you just have a main mobbing skill, which only kills 8 mobs. Anyone remember Jet? Yeah, guess what? Jet's mobbing skill hits more than 8 mobs now. Okay, Law of Gravity, your second most important skill. This is pretty much the skill you're going to be cycling with your Lucid Soul so that you can have a reliable summon ability to be up 100% of the time. Since you're a mage, of course your Lucid Soul's useful. But Law of Gravity, I have problems with this skill too. It has the big problem of needing to attach to a monster to summon. Instead of just placing the black hole a fixed distance in front of your character, it makes the skill feel like garbage because if the mob it chooses dies for any reason, the skill fizzles. It goes on full cooldown, you get no summon, no damage, no mobbing, nothing. It's so annoying. It's such a nice skill too, because it has a good hitbox. It has a really good hitbox, and its damage is really high. It's great, but it's just so tedious that it needs to latch onto a target for it to be useful. Like, even if it didn't latch onto targets, it would still be just as useful as it is currently for bossing, because the hitbox is huge. It's gonna be hitting a boss no matter where the boss is, unless it's like Ravana in Dojo and it just teleports to the other side of the map. There's no benefit from it latching onto the target. And the ultimate Mind Over Matter. I hate this skill. Noticing a trend here? Okay, this skill. I don't know who in the playtesting went over Kinesis and was like, yeah, this is a fun skill to use. It's so fucking tedious. It never stops moving. So when you cast the skill, it starts to slowly drift away from you. That's fine. You can press the key and it'll come back to you slowly again. But with bosses that move, this thing is slower than fucking molasses. So if the bosses move any set distance, you're pretty much losing almost all of the damage. Or for bosses that stand still and have big attacks that you have to dodge constantly, like let's say Black Mage, let's say Saren, you're constantly having to micromanage this thing while you're dodging shit left and right. I don't know why you cannot just set this shield down, and then instead of speeding it up with your psychic push, how about you just spin the thing faster to get more damage out of it? It doesn't even do that much damage for it to be warranted as a burst ability, because a lot of its damage is behind it moving quicker. As counterintuitive as it is, it hits faster the faster it's moving. I understand their logic here, if it's moving quicker, you want it to do the same amount of damage passing through a mob as if it's moving slower, but it actually deals more damage the faster it goes. But it's so tedious to get it moving quickly in bosses that there's never a reason to actually speed it up. The only time I have ever seen anyone bother with speeding this piece of shit up is for portal farming in Below the Cave or Eastern Cave Path, and that's not even good. I don't understand. It's not bad, it does decent damage, it's just tedious to get the damage out of it. It's not useful for mobbing in almost any situation. Not even Frenzied Spawn can make this thing worth using as a mobbing tool. So really just only throw it on when you're bossing, save yourself the hassle. Okay, enough negativity. Because we got the best skill Kinesis has got, baby, Psychic Tornado. The Rubik's Cube of Doom, the only ray of light in this class's 5th job. You remember Draco Blaze on Kaiser? This is Kinesis' answer to Draco Blaze, but even better, because this thing has a gargantuan hitbox. I'm not even kidding, it is possibly one of the biggest hitboxes for a skill like this. You can be at the bottom of PD5, flash jump, and you're hitting the mobs at the very tippity top. This thing is gigantic, and it lasts for a good amount of time. 20 seconds. It's a very, 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 very good mobbing skill. But it doesn't deserve a 3-minute cooldown. Like, they probably put the cooldown on it for its bossing damage because its damage is good, but it's not enough damage to warrant a 3-minute cooldown. I would honestly take a damage hit on the ability to lower this down to a 2-minute cooldown, so it feels even better to use as a mobbing skill, because then you could be constantly cycling Law of Gravity, Lucid Soul, and then using your Rubik's Cube in a circle like that, and your mobbing would feel even more fluid than it currently does. As it is now, you kind of just use this thing as a very scuffed loot timer, or you use it when you're low on psychic points and you don't have one of your generators available to you. So you just use it and then let Drain build up your psychic points on a different part of the map than you're in. It's not bad, but it could be a lot better. But saying that, it's still my favorite skill for this class. It's really, really good. It gave me a lot of Kaiser flashbacks. It felt really good to use. And of course, True Arachnid Reflection. You get it for completing the Will storyline. Decent mobbing, decent bossing. Couldn't really ask for more. Kinesis doesn't have that many insanely overpowered skills for its boost nodes, so you can honestly just leave off your bossing combos entirely, so you can throw this thing on as soon as you get 235. And of course, decent speed infusion, decent sharp eyes, decent combat orders, bonus crit rate, crit damage, bonus attack speed, and bonus all skills +1. Very useful, not super important, just throw them on when you can. Attack speed and crit rate are definitely the most important of the two. And of course, if you're doing any extended training for any period of time, character building 1 if you can afford it. It's just the outright best specialty node for EXP if you're on spawn boosters. If you're on like base spawn or you're a training rotation where you really don't move around much, then you might want to take the rune boost, but 9 times out of 10 for almost all classes for frenzied spawn speed, character building 1 is the way to go. And then of course, your scuffed trio down here, you know. If you get it, throw it on. If not, I wouldn't worry about it. You could honestly just take a super omega scuffed trio with just Psychic Force and Mental Tempest boosted twice and then just pretend Mind Break or Mind Quake, whichever one it is at the time, doesn't exist because neither one of them do enough damage to really warrant them being boosted. So if that makes your life easier, go ahead and do that. Oh boy. That was probably the longest V-Matrix talk we've ever had. On to the training! Honestly, the only highlight of Kinesis' life. The training! It's actually not that bad. For 200 till 205, you've got the standard, you got Below the Cave, Eastern Cave Path 2. There are some unique rotations for this. You can actually use the Icosahedron as a mobbing skill and push it to make it go real fast through the map, but it's not really useful on Frenzied Spawn. So, the easiest, and subsequently the best EXP for training to 205, was the Soulful Urdas. Now, do you guys remember Marksman, right? Split shot, very nice mobbing skill. Huge hitbox, really good reach. Now imagine if split shot had 100% uptime. That's what you're gonna be doing with Shockwave. You literally just left and right Shockwave, and this thing's hitbox is so gargantuan it'll clip everything. The platform above you is where you're going to want to place down your drain. Oh, whoops, I don't have Frenzy on my keys. There we go. We'll fix that. But literally, your rotation is just attacking left and right. Once your energy gets low, always make sure, of course, drain is up, but then you start cycling your skills. You can use Mental Tempest and then press Jaunt immediately after to cancel the animation, so you're not stuck in that, and you can go right back to throwing your Shockwaves. It is slightly annoying trading with Kinesis, but you get used to it because Drain is only a 30-second cooldown. You're constantly replacing it, but for larger maps later in the rotation, you're going to be doing it anyways because you got to cycle Lucid and Law of Gravity. But for these early levels, it's very simple. Literally just attack left and right. The EXP is great. It'll carry you on into Reverse City super quick. You really don't have any energy problems. I thought this would be a bigger problem coming into Kinesis than it actually ended up being, but Psychic Charger is great. Oh yeah, small trick here. For Psychic Charger, for it to be extra beneficial, max out your Psychic Force hyper passive. You get 10 extra Psychic points, which means every time you use Psychic Charger, you're getting 5 extra Psychic points from this skill. It's really nice. It's a great quality of life. It makes it so Kinesis feels like it's not bound by restrictive energy costs while you're mobbing. This is pretty much the one you're going to be spamming most often, because it's only a 45-second cooldown. You also have Mental Tempest, which fully fills your Psychic points. Another reason to max out the Psychic points hyper skill. You get more points for Mental Tempest. And then your final one, the one you want to try to save as much as possible, Mental Overdrive. This is what you need to actually boss efficiently. It cuts all Psychic point consumption in half, and you're constantly generating Psychic points. I think it's 1 every second just by default. So this, along with Drain, is pretty much the only way you're able to keep up with your bossing costs in stuff like Inferno Wolf, Dojo bossing, etc. This is kind of the last one you want to use as well because it's a 3-minute cooldown. It takes a while to come back, but it's not too bad because Psychic Charger is a low cooldown. But for 205 until 215, if you have a soul, or if you're training after the end of Ignition and you have Urda Shower, Hidden Research Train is the way to go. You need a summon on the left side of this map for it to be better. If you don't, Hidden Underground Train is your place to go. No summon reliance whatsoever, you just Shockwave left and right, you full clear the map. Not even kidding. But, since we have a Lucid Soul, Hidden Research Train. Your setup is pretty much just Lucid over here on the left, and then set Drain on the platform immediately above Lucid. And then you're just going to be standing over on the right side in the middle here, and just like at Soulful Urdas, Shockwaving left and right, using your Psychic Point generators whenever you need a little boost. And honestly, this is great. It's very reminiscent of Marksman on Split Shot. This feels good. The only bad feeling part of this is Shockwave's very limited mob count. But even that isn't enough to hold Kinesis down. It's not the best mobber the Mage branch has ever seen, but it is very competent as a mobber. These levels will fly by. Shockwave's base damage makes it a breeze to kill monsters in this level range. And it's really easy. You don't really even have to think that much. You just have to pay attention to your Psychic Points generators, and then just like make sure you're not spamming Shockwave too much, that you're just wasting Psychic Points. Pretty much on Frenzy Spawn, the way you can look at it is just use Shockwave once in either direction, and then wait for mobs to respawn, use it in either direction, and you should be good. You can also get into the habit of clutching once, and then throwing Shockwave. That, along with having Drain out on the field hitting mobs, pretty much will mean you'll never run out of Psychic Points. So you can even cut out the need for your Psychic Point generators entirely if you wanted to. It's slightly worse EXP, but it is very convenient if you need that option for some more brainless farming. And 215 to 220, you probably saw it coming. You've seen the hitbox on Shockwave. You had the same thought I did. Yep, it's Hidden Hilliard Field, right? With a hitbox this big, there's no way it can't triple plat here. Because it does. The only problem is, since there are so many mobs here in the middle, yeah, Shockwave's mob count becomes a little bit of an issue. You pretty much have to relentlessly spam this thing to actually get it to clear this map. It's really good, but it is more tedious to pay attention to, because this is where you're even going to have to start actively cycling your skills. Even if you're doing the clutch slam once into throw, because the mobs you're going to kill anywhere in the map overlap with your drain, you're gonna be KSing your own psychic point generator here. It's kind of an unavoidable problem. But the EXP is more than worth the inconvenience. Oh lad, this map is fantastic when it comes to EXP. You will just breeze right on into Lachlan. It's that easy. And then on into Lachlan. You do have two options here. If you have a Lucid Soul, or if you're post-ignition and you have your Urda Shower placeable summon, you do have the option to go to the Outlaw Street 2, place your Lucid Soul, place your Urda Shower on the right side of the map, and then just you clear on the left. It's very, very good mob kills, but it requires a lot of effort. And since at this level range my Lucid Soul was only 2-shotting, it just didn't keep up. So we went to the easier map, the one where Lucid didn't have to do as much heavy lifting, but still a very good map nonetheless. Revelation Place 3. The standard Lachlan map. It's good on pretty much everyone. Much like the other maps, this is a left-right map for Shockwave. Once again, Shockwave's hitbox is ginormous. It's gonna hit literally everything. Because of Shockwave's insane reach, Shockwave's black hole as well is going to help your Lucid Soul clear the house. The best place for you to stand is a little left of this little butterfly icon on the platform. Because of Shockwave's incredible reach, if you're farther to one of the sides, you're kinda just missing out on potential mobbing. The only downside with this being, once again, you're KSing your own psychic point generator with Psychic Drain on top of the house. But you probably shouldn't have any problems here. This is one of the few maps where you can set Drain and it'll actually almost line up with its animation's hitbox, because the mobs dip down low enough to get into it. This map is great. It's very, very simple. It'll pull very efficient EXP rates. The only thing you gotta worry about is your psychic points, because you're KSing your psychic point generator. Couldn't be easier though. And it'll carry you on into Arcana, nice and quick at level 230. So for 230 until 236, it's Earth Spirits. This map has just become one of my favorites since it got its buffs at the start of Destiny. It's very, very nice, the mob count is very high, and this map actually takes full advantage of Shockwave's incredible reach. There are mobs at the very tippity ends that you're not going to reach, so this is where I would ideally say place your soul, or if you're post-ignition, place your Urda Shower. The right side does not have as many mobs as the left side, so prioritize using your summon on the right side of the map, and then just attack left and right. This is where I started more often than not just using one clutch and then throwing, because you pretty much don't have any energy problems at all when you use one clutch, and you're able to just like zone out entirely. But it is quite a bit slower. You get used to it though. It's got a decent flow to it. If a bit mind-numbing, it's there as an option for when you don't really want to think too much about having to play Kinesis. And then for the first time, and hopefully the last time, my map I'd recommend for 236 until 244 is not a good map. It's just the most convenient one for Kinesis. You can go to CLP, but I hate CLP, and it's not really that much better. You can go to LP1, but it's very inconvenient and heavily reliant on your souls. So, Labyrinth Cavern is the most convenient one with the best EXP rates for the least amount of effort. And it has a pretty decent setup. You ideally want to just be standing here in the middle, and as you can see, shockwaving left and right hits every mob in the map. You will drop down here and set down your Psychic Point Generator with Drain on the far side of the platform. Drop down, place Lucid Soul, up on top, Law of Gravity. Now there's a further optimization for this rotation. If your Lucid Soul is strong enough to one-shot, move your Drain farther into the middle and place your Lucid Soul on top of Drain. That way she's not attacking any of the mobs on the bottom that Drain will kill, and she can solo the top, which means while she's soloing the top, you don't need to use Law of Gravity while they're up, which means once Lucid expires, you can just throw Law of Gravity on the top again with Drain on the bottom, and you will effectively have a permanent clear on the right side of the map, which means all you have to do is just throw shockwaves to the left. It's very, very effortless. It's very convenient. It also has a nice loot cycle because your summons are doing so much of the heavy lifting. Just whenever you place your summons on the right side of the map, you're getting around to loot. And then once all your summons are up, you can literally just throw on Psychic Tornado and just stand here in AFK for the entire duration of Tornado, letting your summons completely nuke the map, get your full loot in, and then just once Tornado is over, it'll throw the Rubik's Cube over, and then all you gotta do, jump back over, replace Drain, hop back in the middle, and just continue chucking Shockwaves left and right until your Lucid Soul or Law of Gravity is back off cooldown. It's a seamless rotation. There is no downtime on your mobs killed. It feels good, but the EXP rates are kinda bad. Considering how few mobs there are in this map on Frenzied Spawn, it's definitely not ideal, but it is pretty much the only amazing option Kinesis has for the level range. Outside of like Shadow Dance Hall 2, but that takes so much more effort for so little of an EXP increase that it's kinda just not worth it in my eyes. But that will carry you all the way to 250 if you want to. Like I said, Kinesis' base damages are not a problem. If you want a budget 250, Kinesis is a great choice. The only bad thing is the V Matrix. Your node budget's gonna take a mighty punch, but if you want a budget 250, Kinesis is great, because that map will be able to carry you all the way to 250 with ease. That thing can easily get into the triple digits for billions of EXP per hour, and it takes no effort. Once you're 230 and you're in the mob's EXP range, so you're not getting reduced EXP and final damage, it just only gets better as you level up. So you can just stay there until 250 if you don't have a lot of damage, or if you just want the easiest rotation. But if you want to change a pace, at 240, I would recommend moving over to Esfera. The Spanish Mafia can't touch me here. It's not MTS3, this isn't their territory yet. MTS4! This map is actually really, really nice for Kinesis, and it's entirely because of this platform right here. It is in the actual perfect place for Kinesis to make full use of this map. Your Drain will go on this platform all the way up here. Your summons will pretty much just be cycled over here. When Law of Gravity is up, use Law of Gravity by itself because its hitbox is huge. Then when Law of Gravity is done, you will set Lucid up on this platform instead of down there so that she's more prioritizing the mobs at the very top of the map. Those are the ones you cannot reach easily. These are the ones you gotta clear with your summons. So either Law of Gravity, Urda Shower once it's changed at the end of Ignition, or Lucid Soul over there to take care of those. And then you just chuck Shockwaves here. Shockwave's big ol' hitbox will hit everything in the map, and because this platform is slightly offset to the left, that means the black hole is actually going to do something for once while you're mobbing. It pretty much evenly lines up with the middle of this platform here, so you're actually going to get more than just 8 mobs per cast of this skill for once. All you gotta do, just make sure you're keeping Drain up because you're gonna need it. Whenever one of your summons is available, hop over, throw it out, and then just go back to your little section here. It's really easy to loot when you have Psychic Tornado up. You pretty much just do a big circle of the map. It's very, very nice. If you don't have Law, or if you don't have Tornado off cooldown, it's a little bit more awkward to loot, but nothing you really can't manage. Kinesis does have good hitboxes. If you're just chucking Shockwaves along with you while you do your loot cycles, you're not going to lose out on that many mob kills. But the big winner here is because these mobs are closer to your range before you go to Celis, and after you're out of the bonus EXP range for the Arcana mobs, this is the perfect bridge map to get you into Celis. This thing can easily push you over 120, almost 130 bill EXP per hour. It's very, very nice. And it's the greatest way to enter Celis. Kill some spoders, then you go to the best training area in the Arcane River. For 244 until 250. It's not PD4 for once. Honestly, when I was testing this map for Kinesis, it was probably the most cursed experience I've ever had testing PD4 on a class. Literally everything just barely didn't line up for this class, and it was awful looking. It was a tragedy. PD1 is a good option. Shockwave can double plat in PD1. You can just set your summons on the top platform, you stand in the middle, Shockwave left and right. It's very simple, very lazy. It's probably the laziest rotation in this area, but it's not the best. A map we're going to more and more often as we get these classes with either a lot of summons or some really big AoEs plus some summons. PD5. You're not going to be able to push this map nearly as hard as Laura or Kana can. Not even as hard as Cannon Master can to some extent, but it's still your best bet for EXP in this level range. For your summons, you are going to be setting Drain up here, facing inwards, and then you are going to cycle your Lucid Soul and Law of Gravity. And then you just stand here in the middle of the map and chuck Shockwaves left and right. For this top left, you can jump up, drop your Will Skill, and just have Will Skill carry that. Or if you're past Ignition, and you have the Urda Shower summon, you will just place your Urda Shower up there to maintain mob kills on that side of the map. And because there are so many mobs in this map, so many that most classes can't really keep up with them, you're always going to have mobs getting hit by Drain. When you replace Drain after 30 seconds, that's when you cycle in Law of Gravity. Lucid will still overlap with it, but that's a-okay, because Law of Gravity lasts for 30 seconds. The next time you have to replace Drain, Lucid will be back up. And you just sit down here and you cycle your energy generators. More often than not, you're going to have to actually use your energy generating skills while you have Law of Gravity up, because Law of Gravity is a little bit worse at KSing your Drain field than Lucid Soul is. And literally, it does not get easier than this. Once Tornado's off cooldown, you can use Tornado to loot the map extra efficiently, or you can just loot the map and jump and use Shockwave, because Shockwave's hitbox is so big, no matter where you throw it down here, you're pretty much going to be double platting. It's just a little bit easier with Tornado. Not much of an EXP increase if you prioritize looting with Tornado, and I wouldn't really recommend it either, because it's a 3-minute cooldown, a lot of your stuff's going to expire, but it's there as a convenience option. And the map, very easy. This is probably the map that felt the best for me while training on Kinesis, because I had the least issues. The least issues training there over other maps. That's like the lowest chance of just not getting enough energy generated from Drain, the lowest need to like pay attention to your energy generators on a cooldown. It's very, very simple. So that's pretty much as good as it gets for Kinesis training till 250. And I didn't mind it. I thought the mobbing would be the big problem here with Kinesis. I know when the third V came out, the Shockwave, it had no limitation on the black holes, so it was like the epitome of very, very lazy farming for Kinesis, and I thought about, when the skill came out, I thought about doing Kinesis way back then. If you remember back to my I'm going for 10k video, I had my Kinesis weapon in storage fully completed for over 3 years before I actually started playing this class. And the only reason I made that back then was like, wow, Shockwave looks really cool. This is actually kind of an insane ability. This would be a good time to do Kinesis. And then I started playing Kinesis a little bit, and I started seeing the cracks in the armor, so to speak. I was like, nah, there's no way, dude. I'll shelf this for now. The skill might get nerfed, and it did. You can only have one black hole at a time now. It's not nearly as OP. But I'm like, surely, this is a newer class, you know. It's about as new as Reboot. They'll fix it. They'll make it better. They'll try to, like, glue pieces back onto this thing, you know, the stuff that's fallen off the carriage. But they just didn't. It's like KMS has abandoned Kinesis. I don't understand. This class has the potential to be really, really good. It's a great theme. It is fantastic in its aesthetics and its execution on its themes. But just like all the moving parts when it comes to playing this class are just so fucking clunky or broken, or they just aren't consistent. It's like, this is the Windows Vista of MapleStory classes. It's a good looking thing on the surface, but once you get under the hood, oh my god, it's fucking band-aids and bubblegum holding this thing together. Oh, I was really hoping by the time I actually got to playing this class, they would have fixed some of its problems, but they didn't. And they're only just now giving it minor quality of life changes. For the bossing, Kinesis is kind of a train wreck. Pun intended. Your skills cost way too much. Really, really they do. If you're not on Mental Overdrive, using Metal Press and using Trainwreck are fucking terrible. Even with maxed out psychic points in your hyper stats, you only have 40 psychic points max. Train costs fucking 15! The only way I could justify this cost is if over the duration of train it gave you back its own cost, or at least half of it. But currently it doesn't, and it just, outside of having the cost for your burst, I would never ever use train. This skill is absolutely worthless as a mobbing tool. It costs way too much. You already have such a thin margin for error on your psychic points spamming Shockwave as your main mobbing skill, because Clutch is a piece of shit. You can't use it as your main mobbing skill, that you just can't use one of their biggest 100% uptime summons for mobbing. It would be great if you could actually use Trainwreck. This thing is huge. It would be such a good mobbing tool to have, but you just don't get to. The cost is too inhibitive to use. You're gonna be forced to mob with Clutch, and if you're ever using Clutch as a mobbing skill, it's just a fucking detriment to your EXP. And then there's Metal Press. This thing is your damage button. This is what you use to deal damage for your burst to kill bosses, but at 7 per cast, you bleed through your psychic points so incredibly quick. The only time you get proper good uptime on this is when you have mental overdrive up, so that the cost is halved and it is also generating psychic points for you. It's so awkward because you're constantly being forced to switch between building up your psychic points using Clutch, which is one of the worst feeling skills in the game, bossing and mobbing, and then just actually dealing damage by spamming Metal Press. It feels super clunky. Not to mention, if the bosses move, which hey, most endgame bosses move, you don't even have the reliable psychic point generator from Drain. It feels bad. Kinesis is like the most bind burst reliant class I have ever played. When a boss cannot move, Kinesis does good damage. Like, Kinesis was consistently getting about the same amount of damage to Inferno Wolf as my hero was, which is a lot of damage, but that's only because Inferno Wolf doesn't really move. I was able to actually set up every one of its skills, get maximum psychic points generating, get all the debuffs going, get the bleed from push on, all the V skills. But you're just not able to do that all the time. Not to mention all of your cooldowns being desynced. It's so awkward. Why is Law of Gravity 60 seconds? Why is Icosahedron 90 seconds? Why is Psychic Tornado 180 seconds? Why do none of these line up conveniently for an off burst? It's so bad. I said it before, I don't know how Kinesis players play this class. I seriously don't. There's so many glaring issues with this class. And the damage really doesn't make up for it. Like, why in 2022 Maple would you play Kinesis over Ilium? One class hasn't received any noticeable changes in the 5 years of its existence. Another class has been buffed 15 times in a row, and is possibly one of the most overpowered mages in the game right now. It's just, both of them have annoying mechanics. The Orb for Ilium, the Psychic Points and constantly moving Shift for Kinesis. Both are great mobbers, you know, teleporting around with the portals on Ilium, using all of your summons and your Shockwave constantly on Kinesis, and both do a lot of damage. Just one of them is a lot less clunky. I don't know. I have not been this confused about a class since Demon Avenger. This class is all style. It's very little substance. What there is here is a mishmash of like conflicting ideas and poor design. The Shockwave mob cap of 8, who thought that was a good idea? It was bad enough on Planet Buster, which didn't have a resource cost you had to manage, and Jet got buffed. How has this escaped buffs for its entire duration? Mobs detracting your mob count on the following skill? Why? Like, why can't the mobs you pick up add on to your mobbing? Why not integrate the system of picking up mobs and slamming them into each other to beat them together and kill them? Make it beneficial for the class. Why is it a detriment? Why does Clutch even need to pick up mobs at all? Why is there this quarter-second animation where you literally aren't doing damage, you're not hitting anything, you're not doing fucking nothing, where you're just picking up your orbs? It feels so clunky, it's so useless. It's like, how have they not figured out that Drain is so vitally important for bossing that it might be beneficial to have it be just an aura around Kinesis instead of a placeable summon for all these bosses who move constantly, where you're just constantly having to finically move this thing around like it's an even more needy version of Mur on Evan. It's not good. It's like, this class has the potential to be really fucking cool, but it's just been sabotaged from the very beginning. I feel like Nexon just shot this class in the kneecaps as soon as people thought it was overpowered on release, which, to be fair, it was. BPM on release was a 7-line hurricane. Kinesis was goated on the release, but then they just, like, over knee-jerk nerfed it, and when it was quote-unquote balanced with the other classes at the time, they're like, yeah, this is fine, and they just let it rot for fucking 4 years. Like, this class needs a rework more than the Cygnus Masters did. Honest to God, the Cygnus classes didn't need a remaster. Kinesis needs a remaster. This class is so fucking clunky. Like, I would recommend Blazezard over playing this thing, and most people hate Blazezard because they feel like it plays like garbage. I don't know, dude. I haven't even gotten to the fucking complaint where Jaunt is server-sided. That doesn't even feel like an issue anymore with all the other glaring problems this class has. I don't think Kinesis is in a good enough state where I'd ever recommend it over any of the other mages, unless you're just like really fixed in on its aesthetic, because it's a good aesthetic. It's a cool looking class. It would be great if you could pick it up and play it, but it doesn't work most of the time. I hate to be overly negative about the class, but there really aren't that many positives for me to focus on. It's a lot of good ideas, but they just don't work together. They didn't balance it properly. They didn't make it fun to play. They just made it strong. But that's been Kinesis. A train wreck of a class. Unfortunately, Kinesis ate up all of my nodes, so we're not going to be getting to the next 250 for a while. I have to go and farm node stones on my 0, so pray for my sanity. Back to 0 farming. So, I hope you guys found this informative. Kinesis mains, take it with a grain of salt. It's definitely a negative review. Overly negative, probably, but it's just like, with classes that exist nowadays, Kinesis should be better than this. It has to be better than this. It's not there yet as a class. But that has been Kinesis. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, if you have any questions about playing Kinesis, my journey to get all these classes to 250, or just about playing MapleStory in general, feel free to ask in the comments below. I make it a point in all of these videos to answer any and all questions you guys might have, because I love talking about this game, even when I'm shitting on it constantly. But that's been Kinesis. I'm so glad I'm done with it.